Waiguchi Khalsa, Waiguchi Ki Fateh. My name is Gursan Singh. Today I want to speak to those that will be traveling to 3HO's Tantric and Kundalini Yoga event there in Espanola, New Mexico. I traveled there every year from about 1980 until 2008 for Yogi Bhajan's summer solstice, as he used to call it. And today I want to talk about my experience and why I feel that the Tantric and Kundalini Yoga of Yogi Bhajan is a fraud, and not only that, I think it's dangerous. Now, Yogi Bhajan made an outright lie and fraud about his lineage of the Tantric and Kundalini Yoga. Now, why does that matter? Because if there is no lineage or no history of the effects of Tantric and Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, then we don't know the long-term effects of his hodgepodge of these yogas. Now, don't just take my word for this. Go to the teachers that you'll encounter there at this summer solstice and ask them point blank if there is any other evidence of Yogi Bhajan's lineage of his Tantric and Kundalini Yoga from any other source besides his own recollection or talks. Just be nice about it. Just ask in a civil way. Where is the proof that there is a lineage to Yogi Bhajan's Tantric and Kundalini Yoga? Now, I will add that if anybody finds a reputable and credible source outside of Yogi Bhajan for these Tantric and Kundalini Yoga practices that Yogi Bhajan taught, I will completely apologize and make a public apology to all those people in 3HO, to all those people who have ever practiced Kundalini and Tantric Yoga. So, because as many of you know, I've been critical of Yogi Bhajan's Tantric and Kundalini Yoga since I started to research and really investigate this Yogi Bhajan. I started to have my suspicions about Yogi Bhajan, maybe 20 years ago. But I kept up with it because Yogi Bhajan was so charismatic and very, very manipulative. That brings us to another point. Why should you believe Yogi Bhajan and his Tantric Kundalini Yoga just because he may be very persuasive? He may even champion some of the causes that you might be interested in. He may be funny. He may be entertaining as well. And he may also be very cozy with people and try to make them feel like they're accepted. But this is no reason to really accept what he's saying in his Tantric and Kundalini Yoga teachings. You know, there are many psychopaths who are very manipulative. They're the sweetest people you've ever met. But really what's going on inside of them is very disturbing. So look closely at this. I mean, this is your life we're talking about. This is your life, your health. This is your entire being, your spiritual being that we're talking about. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to follow a man who abuses his students, wears these natural fur coats that kill animals, like you can see in the video here? He adorned himself with millions of dollars worth of jewelry. I was witness to this. He had me buy ivory when it was just about to be made illegal $3,000 to put me in debt. You can see these ivory elephant tusks here that he put up in Espanola. And so you have to ask yourself, is this a man you really want to be following, who has been known to abuse his students? And in some cases, there were even some high up level secretaries that sued him and charged him with rape. So is this somebody you really want to have as a, quote, spiritual teacher, or to follow his teachings? Now let's look more closely at why I say Yogi Bhajan is committing a fraud and a lie. Now I know that many of you may not be particularly religious, but I'm a Sikh, and I think you have to appreciate the insult, the extreme arrogance that Yogi Bhajan showed towards the Sikh gurus and towards the Sikh religion. Now I want to read for you from a lecture that Yogi Bhajan gave. This was back in 1980. And it shows the lie that he perpetrated about the lineage of his Kundalini Yoga coming from the Sikh religion, and how he completely insults Sikhs in the Sikh religion. This is first a student who starts out asking the question of Yogi Bhajan in this lecture. This was in Los Angeles in 1980. Student says, you mentioned, in Espanola, you mentioned that Guru Ram Das was Raj Yog. And the last person, the person before him in this lineage, was Krishna. And Yogi Bhajan says, no, before that Raj Yog Tukat came to Guru Ram Das, it was given to him by Guru Amar Das and Guru Nanak, celebrated. Our Guru's family comes from the Raj Yog. Then the student says, could you give the briefest to explain about this institution? And Yogi Bhajan replies, ask Jasbirkar. It is how, and because he drops off there and doesn't know what to say. And then the student says, she has researched, talking about Jasbirkar, she has researched it, and she cannot figure out anything. So Yogi Bhajan has clearly put this off on one of his lackey students to figure out this lineage that he has perpetrated about this Kundalini Yoga coming from the Sikh Gurus. And he doesn't have an answer for this student who asked this very legitimate question. Then Yogi Bhajan says, no, she will tell you she has, and the student says, she has researched it and she can't find out anything. And then Yogi Bhajan says, no, she will tell it if she has a time. She knows all about it. First Tukat Raj Yoga was established by Raja Janak, and after that, the second man who celebrated the kingdom of it was Lord Krishna. In between it carried on, and then finally when it appeared in Kali Yuga, and that is the house of Guru Ram Das. All right, so Yogi Bhajan obviously doesn't have a full answer for the student, and as is typical with Yogi Bhajan, he completely shouts at people and just cuts them off before they can ask any more questions or in-depth questions about it. Now let me explain about this, how Yogi Bhajan mistranslated the Sikh scriptures, the Gurbani, in order to fit his lineage of Kundalini and Tantric Yoga. When I found this out, being a Sikh, it really disturbed me, really alarmed me. And so I want to get the truth out so that people understand that Yogi Bhajan is lying about this. He's mistranslating Gurbani. And I have another video that goes into detail about the exact angs, as we call them, in the Siddhi Guru Granth Sahib, which is our Sikh scripture, which talk about these lines. And Yogi Bhajan has mistranslated them just to fit his version of this so that he can fit his Tantric and Kundalini Yoga into the Sikh religion. People should be very upset about this. There was a whole article in the Sikh Free Press. You can see it here in the video. It's called American Yogis Distort Sikh Scriptures. And it goes in depth about how Yogi Bhajan purposely manipulated the Sikh scriptures to fit his Kundalini and Tantric Yoga. We should all be very upset about this. Even if you're not a Sikh, please appreciate that Yogi Bhajan is insulting the Sikh religion. Now, I want to go on to talk about how Yogi Bhajan specifically attributes this Kundalini and Tantric Yoga to the fourth Sikh Guru, Guru Ram Das. He says here, Takat Raj Yog. And then the student says, Takat Raj Yog, ha. You mentioned that Krishna was the second, and then of course Yogi Bhajan cuts him off. And he says, ask Jasbir again. He's putting it off on this Jasbir car to figure out this history. He says, ask Jasbir to take it out. Or ask Baisab or Baisaba. This is a spiritual matter, Yogi Bhajan says. It's just amazing how Yogi Bhajan would always put aside these in-depth questions, never had specific answers for these things. And he used the Sikh religion in order to give credibility to his Kundalini Yoga. It really incenses me that he should do this and give this credibility to his Tantric and Kundalini Yoga and use the Sikh religion in this way. We should all be very upset about it. So then the student says, oh, and then the students are laughing too in this. You should just listen to this tape. I've put a link to it into this video. The student says, you said that the same lineage is for the Mahan, and then Yogi Bhajan, of course, cuts him off. And the student wanted to say lineage for the Mahan Tantric, which is another completely false lie that Yogi Bhajan has told to his students and told all of us when I was in 3HO about this Mahan Tantric that he said he was the only Mahan Tantric at the time in the universe. YB says, ha, and students all laugh. They're laughing at Yogi Bhajan. Student says, so what I thought, and then Yogi Bhajan, of course, cuts him off again. And then Yogi Bhajan says, well, and then he kind of dribbles off, doesn't know what to say. And the students all laugh again. And he says, let the historian figure it out. I pass. That's what Yogi Bhajan finally ends up saying. So you really have to wonder about how this Yogi Bhajan operated. I mean, my experience with him for 30 years, he was nothing more than a con artist. He was a customs officer in the Indian Customs Service. And we all know that in the Customs Service in India, they take more bribes than anybody else. And so it took me all of this time from the age that I was 25 when I first thought that I was getting into a real spiritual group to understand that Yogi Bhajan was really about money. He was about power and manipulating people to fit his agenda so they could live a luxurious lifestyle. You can see him here in some of these photos, how he was with this right-hand man of him, this Hari Jivan. They'd go to Beverly Hills every day. I went with them on security duty, and they would spend $2,000 on lunch in Beverly Hills every single day. And Yogi Bhajan had no time, he said, to be able to testify in this case where he was subpoenaed for his discovering his statement for when he was charged with this rape from his lead secretary, this Premkar. Instead, we would go to lunch in Beverly Hills and eat out, and you can see how fat he became too, Yogi Bhajan. So is this really somebody you want to follow their yoga and believe what he says? Again, there is no outside evidence that Yogi Bhajan was giving a credible form of Kundalini and Tantric Yoga. There's no outside evidence. And again, I will completely apologize if anybody can find any kind of evidence outside of Yogi Bhajan. Now, I want to read for you some statements that a former follower of Yogi Bhajan recently wrote. His name is Anshuman Vikram Singh Meredith. And you can see him here in this video here. He's playing Gurbani Kirtan at the Darbar Sahib, which is the Sikhs' holiest shrine there in Amritsar. It's typically called the Golden Temple. And he was the first Western ever to play there. And he also was known as Vic Briggs, which part of the Animals before he got into 3HO. You may have heard of some of their famous rock songs. And House of the Rising Sun was one of them, by the way. So Vikram Singh has been coming out, speaking out against Yogi Bhajan He was in the Yogi Bhajan group until about 1991, when he completely got frustrated by it. There was a situation where Yogi Bhajan wanted them to sell the ashram and give the money to Yogi Bhajan. And Vikram Singh gave the money to Yogi Bhajan, but he gave it to him under protest. And he left the group because he just felt like Yogi Bhajan was taking this money and using it for his own purposes, buying jewelry, fancy cars, and all these kind of things like this. So at the time, we were all told Vikram Singh was slandering Yogi Bhajan, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, Yogi Bhajan, he said from a very credible source, I was told, and Vikram Singh was told, that Yogi Bhajan said he would spend $1 million to destroy Vikram Singh. So Yogi Bhajan was really manipulative. He was very abusive to people, and you can see it here in his statements that he was trying to destroy Vikram Singh. And no doubt he would have tried to destroy me too as well if I had come out when he was alive against him. So Vikram Singh says here, he says, I object to Yogi Bhajan's metaphysics being taught as gospel by people like Hari Jivan when there is no frame of reference for most of it. In other words, I say most of it was made up and should not be taught without some kind of substantiation to young and vulnerable people like you, and Vikram Singh speaking to a yoga student. I object to the lie that Kundalini Yoga is an ancient science when there is so much evidence that it is nothing other than YB's synthesis and creation. I would have no objection if it was taught as such. I object to the well-publicized lie that Kundalini Yoga comes from the Sikh gurus. I have other objections regarding 3HO version of Sikhi, but that is not germane to this conversation. So Vikram Singh has been coming out and talking about these things, and he goes on to go on further. He says, he's talking to this yoga student. Well, I should say this yoga student says, he says, during a yoga session on 1/11/11, I felt as if I was surfing the rings of Jupiter and Saturn. I was one with the universe and never felt so completely and totally in tune with God. So Vikram Singh says, you did not make it clearer that this was a personal experience, you said. So what is wrong with channeling energies from Jupiter? Thus I assumed that this was something you were being taught. Now I understand that this was your experience and nothing more. I would never argue with that. Yoga student says, do you think that Kundalini Yoga is good to do, but that the metaphysical teachings are off? And then Vikram Singh says, yes. Yes would be the short answer here. The long answer is more like this. I started Kundalini Yoga many years ago, and it very likely saved my life. I had a lot of incredible experiences. Not too long after that, I discovered Sikhi, the Sikh religion, in a way that was pretty much free of Yogi Bhajan's influences. I continue to practice and teach Kundalini Yoga, but its influence on me waned considerably as I experienced the glory of the Sikh experience through Gurbani. Now, I want to add that Yogi Bhajan always taught us, and you can watch some of my other videos to get the exact thing, that Kundalini and Tantric Yoga were necessary for us to be good Sikhs. He says this as much when people would leave and they were doing their Sikh religious practice. Yogi Bhajan would chastise them and say that they left because they weren't doing Kundalini and Tantric Yoga. He made us feel guilty. He made us feel like we'd be punished by God. In fact, Yogi Bhajan used this phrase, your soul will be dried up and dried in the desert. So it was by his intimidation that we stayed in 3HL, that we did all these Kundalini and Tantric Yogas. And Yogi Bhajan, let there be no doubt, he was very intimidating. So I see this happening in 3HO, and if you experience this at summer solstice, which many will, about this intimidation, please ask these questions about what is the real lineage of Kundalini Yoga, and about these people who are speaking up and criticizing Kundalini Yoga. Just ask it in a civil way and see what you get. You might even record their responses. Some of these people like Garuka and Guru Singh, Gurmukhar too, as well. Well, thank you for your time, and I hope you watch some of my other videos for more detailed information about Yogi Bhajan's lies. Wahegu Ji Ka Khalsa, Wahegu Ji Ki Fateh.